All right, so now let's get on to our films of the week. What'd you see this week, David?
All right. Well, I'm going to start it off with I did a review on this on our in our group,
Okay.
and I put the same review in an A24 group that I'm part of. Um, so I've talked about it all the time. I've been on a quest to try to see as many A24 films as I can. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this one is called Eighth Grade. It
Oh,
is it is directed by Bo Burnham, who is a stand-up comic. It's his first time directing a film. Not really a big fan of his stand-up comedy, but I thought I'd give it a chance. I'm going to read the part that in the 824 group really pissed people off. I'm gonna preference this by saying, and I've said it on the show before, I don't come from money. I grew up pretty damn poor. This is a coming to age tale. Which the thing with a small story coming to age, if you don't relate to the main character, it's not going to be a good film for you. Um, but so this is about an eighth grade girl and her struggles with her anxiety and finding friends. But I'll read this verbatim what I wrote. At first, I hated this kid. She was the personification of white middle class privilege. Her problems are only problems in her entitled world. She is addicted to her phone and treats her father like shit. She grows on me slightly, but I never get to the point of caring.
whoa.
Now,
Damn.
now that's just honestly how I feel. And if you watch this film and you don't come from white suburbia,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, and there were people who totally agreed with me. Don't. It's not like I was the contrarian. There were other people. It's like I totally understand that. But when you put the words white and privilege anywhere near each other, it pisses off white privilege people.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Which unfortunately, in the art film world, most of them are white privilege. It's just it kind of goes with the territory. Growing up in poor neighborhoods, I was the weird kid because I liked art. So, um, but that just seemed to strike a nerve with a lot of people, and yeah, that's just purely how I felt. The girl, the main character, just annoyed the living shit out of me. Um, like I said, she does grow on me towards the end, and in the last 5 minutes, she turns into, I guess, a normal person. And I guess that's what they're trying to get across. Um, but this movie was not made for me. Um,
Yeah, who's the target audience, really?
um, White middle class people
Oh, okay. That's what you were saying before.
who growing up having hard times in white middle class society because they can't find many friends. Um, I grew up in areas where people were trying to find food. So,
Wow.
so not having enough friends, that was kind of low on the totem pole. Um, so, so if your conflict is, I'm kind of chubby and I don't have enough friends and I have acne, you know what? I'm just not going to really relate to that because my problems were much worse when I was 13. Uh, but at the same time, I'm not knocking anybody who grew up in suburbia. It's just a different life than what I experienced. So I can totally understand if you relate to this character. And I probably have lots of friends that could relate to this character. I personally could not relate to this character. Technically, the film was fine. The acting, unless this girl is a total piece of shit like the character, the acting was great. Um, um, but this film, like, it seems people just love this film so much. Um, and you know me, I usually always go against the critics.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if and it's not even a gender thing. If it was a coming of age story of a girl growing up poor, dealing with that stuff, I'd probably relate to it a lot more. So it doesn't really have an affected gender. Had a lot of people said it's a generational thing. I don't really see it that way. It was more of a social economic thing to me, because like I've said, I have a 14-year-old kid that I live in my household with every day. I know what kind of issues that he has. We try to be good parents by limiting him being on his phone all the time, and try to teach him how to be a decent human being instead of letting him be a little asshole.
This sounds like in contrast to your Florida Project movie.
Yeah, which I loved. Also, in my argument, if you've ever seen the movie Kids, which I think we've spoken about before, you said you haven't seen it. Nope. That is a coming of age tale about poor kids in New York City. I can relate to that. To this day, I can relate to that, and that's kind of timeless. Can it be generational that you're just addicted to your phone all the time? When I was 13, you didn't have a phone to be addicted to all the time.
Right.
And your parents would probably punch you in your face if you acted that way.
Okay.
Back then, you didn't call the cops on mom and dad for kicking your ass. Nowadays you do. So. But again, it's not a total knock on the film. It just was not for me.
What did you end up rating it in the group? I forgot.
I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Oh.
Now that's just out of my preference.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jess saw it and she liked it. I don't think she gave it a rating in the group, but now I want to go. I'll pick her brain about it after the show, and see what she would rate it after I tell her what you thought of it.
And I don't know what your wife's, how she grew up, but she hopefully grew up better than I did, so she might be able to relate to it a little better.
Do you think that? I mean, when you see movies like this, obviously, I mean, it's the main character is much younger than you. Do you find it difficult, like just off the bat, just like from the beginning of the movie, just like putting yourself into a position where you're able to see a story, or do you feel that there has to be something that you're able to relate to or latch on to in order for it to feel believable to you?
You have to relate to the character in some aspect. The Florida Project is a contemporary film of younger kids and 8th graders.
Mm-hmm.
And I could totally, I related to that so much that the film affected me emotionally. So it doesn't have to do with the age of them. It has to do with just the relatability of their situation. Again, just being upset because you don't have enough friends in high school. Our middle school going into high school, that just seems like normal everyday problems that tons of people have.
Maybe that was the point, right? That it's
and it's just I don't know. I've never been one of those people to when I was that kid's age. I had a group of friends, not a huge group of friends, but we were all weirdos, and we took pride in the fact that we weren't like everybody else. That's where the generational thing, I think, comes in, is that in my experience, what I see, the individuality it's not cool. It's not as cool as it used to be when I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a lot more so now, though. I would go the opposite with that. I would say like it's cool to be a weirdo now. Like, because in the 90s it was all like, oh, nerd. You're a geek, you're a this. But now there's a lot more appreciation for people who do have those individual interests and clubs and whatnot.
Well, it was cool in the 90s amongst a certain set of people. But
all the nerds were appreciated among the nerds.
Yeah, things were a lot more cliquish back. Things were a lot more cliquish back then. you were whatever music you listened to, that was almost like who you had to hang out with.
Right.
When I was in high school, you had the headbangers, and you had the hip hop kids, and you had the stoners, and it's just how it was. Um, me and my group of friends, we were just kind of weirdos, and we were happy not to fall into any of those cliques and just kind of go to the beat of our own drum. What this film is this girl is really sad because she can't fit in with all the cool kids, which is my take on it.
Where's this in your hierarchy of A24 films?
This is bottom tier.
Oh, ouch.
Now, that's just because I can't relate to it. From a technical standpoint, the direction, everything, it's a competent film.
Worthy of the A24 name.
Yeah, they're really big in those coming of age tales. Lady Bird was another one I didn't really like either. And that got, nominated for the Oscar and got so much praise. I couldn't really relate to that one. That one was set in 2002, I believe it was. So, and she was kind of not a poor kid, but lower middle class, trying to act like she had more money. But it was supposed to be a comedy. I just didn't really find it funny.
I barely remember that. That name rings a bell. Let me look that one up.
Lady Bird was better than 8th grade. I would probably say that's like a 6.5. But 8th grade just seemed like it was pandering to the self-absorbed, phone-addicted child.
So maybe it was a good what's the word? Like a picture about today's children in that way, no?
Yeah, it could have been, but it's
moving on.
Yeah, why do you want to raise your child like that?
Well, I saw.
Yeah, what did you see?
I saw Queen and Slim, which I did a review I was pretty happy about in the group. Queen and Slim stars Daniel, I'm going to say his name, and I'm not going to look back after I say it. Daniel Kaluuya. Kaluuya. That's it? I'm not saying it again. Daniel.
Just say the guy from Get Out.
The guy from Get Out is in the movie with an actress that I don't think I've seen before. Maybe in one other movie, but I already forgot which one. But it was I gave it an 8 out of 10. I really liked it. It was had someone told me ahead of time that it was more of a protest art, the movie, then I probably would have appreciated it more watching it, because sometimes when going into a movie, if there's a message they're trying to say and I'm not prepared for it, it hits me and I get caught off guard and I feel like, oh, well, that's not very fair. But it's not meant to be a fair statement. The movie is making a statement. It's about the social injustice and racial injustice against blacks and the black communities in America. And the movie sort of puts that when, if you've seen the trailer, it gives away the initial conflict anyway. But the conflict, I don't think it's a big deal if I say it, is that Daniel Kaluuya and Kaluuya. See, I said it, and I said I wasn't going to say it again. I said it. Daniel Kaluuya and the girl whose name I forget, the actress, they are on a first date, and they get pulled over by a cop who it appears that he is pulling him over for a really shitty reason. Anyway, what results is that the officer gets killed in self-defense by Daniel when the gun gets loose. And so they decide to go on the run. It happens in Ohio, and the decision to run, I mean, if for nothing else, is to start the plot going that they have to be on the run. But the reasoning, see, this is something else that obviously would be very much more deeply understood by the black community. I mean, how easy would it be for a black man to get convicted of this crime, and how hard would it be to defend him, for him to defend himself in this case where he's shot a he shot a white cop, and it's obviously he used the gun, so there could have been there could have been all kinds of stories, and how difficult would it be him to get through the system in this way. So they run, and they leave. They go out of state, and they have to escape the police in this whole movie. The That all almost takes place in a backdrop. If you look at the movie as a love story, it's really interesting because at the beginning of the movie, they're not into each other at all. I mean, she's not interested in him. And as the movie progresses, they find that the other person that they are essentially forced to be with, because they can't call anyone, they can't trust anyone else, they can't say this is the situation I'm in, blah blah blah, because they don't know who they can trust, that they're not going to turn them in. So they're just forced to be together, and by doing that, they reveal, obviously slowly, intimate details about their past, and eventually what they need in a partner. And it's really beautiful how that unravels, and how they just become what's the word, they make themselves vulnerable to the other person. And it's a really beautiful love story with the unfortunate backdrop of really harsh reality that this community faces in our nation. And like I said, it's not meant to be a fair story, so there's a lot of there may be some, there's some token characters where, every white cop is bad, and I know personally that's not the truth, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree that every white officer is not going to be racist. And this is touching on controversial stuff that I really don't like talking about on this show. This is not fun to talk about, but it's a movie, and it's art, and it's something that this talks about. So, but that aside,
could it possibly be that they're using those cops as a stand-in for how they feel about the whole system?
Exactly. So that's what I was getting to. So that's the image, or that's the message they're trying to get across, that it may not be every single cop, but it's so pitted against them that it might as well be. Like, the system is just so against them. And you don't need me to tell you the statistics. You can look it up yourselves, and however you guys want to feel about this movie, it's up to you. But it was very powerful. It's a very powerful statement once you realize that that's what the message is. Before I realized what it was, and I saw the ending, I felt the ending was, I was like, oh, that's so it was such a bad ending. I really didn't enjoy the ending at first. And then when I started to read more about it, and read more about where the director and the writer was going with this, and it made a lot more sense. The whole movie made a lot more sense. And it was sad. There's a feeling of sadness throughout the whole movie, really, for the plight that they go through. But I really liked it.
Well, that sounds interesting, especially for someone. I guess if you're into the whole Blue Lives Matter movement, it's not for you, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So if you don't really care for it, you're not going to care for it. How else can you say it?
If you like red hats.
If you like red hats, I'm going to say don't even come to this podcast, but maybe we shouldn't. I'll cut that out. I'll cut it out. Maybe.
If you want to take us back to the 50s when America was great, this might not be the film for you.
You're not allowed to say on this show, America, make America great again. Or, you know where we're going. Don't say those in the same sentence. Gross.
Oh.
I have so much to cut out now. Anyway. What is another movie you saw?
Oh, I've seen so many of them. The most important film I saw this week, and I don't know why you didn't see this film this week, Raj. because it's like an event. Yeah, it was an event for most film-loving Americans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but The Irishman.
Oh God Almighty! I forgot all about this movie. I really wanted to watch it too.
How could you forget?
Oh gosh,
That's like
come
forgetting your
on!
child's birthday.
It was freaking Thanksgiving week. Wait, wasn't this Thanksgiving weekend?
It came out the day before
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's such a brilliant film. Um, Martin Scorsese,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all you have to say.
No, no, don't do that. You can't just put this guy on a pedestal forever. What?
Um, well, it's The Irishman is directed by Martin Scorsese,
Mm-hmm.
um, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. Uh, oh, so good to see Joe Pesci back in film. Um, but this film is Robert De Niro is the main character. He plays a fella by the name of Frank Sheeran, who starts off. Um, he's in the Teamsters Union, the truck drivers, um, and he ends up being pretty much a hitman for the mob. Um, Joe Pesci plays the the mob figure, um, Russell Buffalino, who is the head of a Philadelphia crime family. Al Pacino plays Jimmy Hoffa, um,
Mm.
which people who don't know history, Jimmy Hoffa was the president of the Teamsters Union and one day went missing, which is one of the biggest mysteries in American crime history. People still joke about Jimmy Hoffa. It's
Yeah.
such. Um, Al Pacino plays him to a T. But Jimmy Hoffa even says in the movie at one time he was probably the second most powerful man in the country next to the president.
Mm.
So the Teamsters Union were so powerful, but Jimmy Hoffa is always known to have some links to organized crime.
Mm.
The performances in this movie is out of this fucking world. First of all, if you ever get a scene where Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are on camera together, you can't go wrong with that. One of my favorite scenes ever is you remember Heat, the movie Heat?
Oh my gosh, barely. Yeah, I remember the cover.
Robert De Niro and Al Pacino meet for
Yeah.
the first time. Um, Al Pacino is the cop. Robert De Niro is a robber, and they sit down and have dinner together. And it's just such an amazing scene. But we get a whole film of this, pretty much. Um, Robert De Niro is very close friends, ends up being very close friends with Jimmy Hoffa, Al Pacino's character. He's
Mm.
also very close to Joe Pesci's character. So Robert De Niro's character is kind of stuck here in the middle. And the whole movie it gets to the point where he's just uncomfortably in the middle between two factions that need each other, but at the same time have issues with each other.
Mm.
Um, it's 3.5 hours long, and it does not feel that long at all.
I've heard that. I heard the opposite.
Yeah, that's by idiots say that. So Casino is
I'm
3 hours long, which is a brilliant movie. Goodfellas is what 2.5 hours, something like that.
I'm gonna watch The Irishman and just intentionally do give a 1-star review. Just a long-winded 1-star review. just to ruffle your feathers. Just
Well, to me, Martin Scorsese is the most important director in film history. I'm not saying he's the greatest. He's the most important. He's the greatest storyteller who's ever worked a film.
Hmm.
If you look back through Martin Scorsese's filmography, he has more amazing films than almost anybody. You have The Taxi Driver, you have The King of Comedy, you have Goodfellas, you have Casino, you have The Wolf of Wall Street, you have The Departed, you have this film. And that's not even going. You got Mean Streets. He has so many great films, and I felt like this was almost a culmination of his career. Martin Scorsese's in his 70s, so is De Niro and Pacino and Joe Pesci. It just felt like this was capping off an amazing career. We'll probably never see all these guys together, but the the chemistry between Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. I'm sorry, Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci with Martin Scorsese behind the camera is legendary,
Mm.
and it's just amazing to watch. And Joe Pesci does not play the normal Joe Pesci psychotic role. He is he's one of the Dons, so he's very subtle. I think I said it. He's that speaks softly and carries a big stick. He doesn't have to yell. He doesn't have to fight because he's already controlling everything.
Mm.
Um, Ray Romano has a pretty pivotal role and does really good. Harvey Keitel has a small role, but this film it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It definitely be in my top 10 list. It's just amazing. It's just capping off a year of just amazing cinema.
No, I will definitely be watching that. God, I'm going to say this week, and I want to put up a review. In May, I'm not going to put up a 1-star review just to piss you off, but I'd like to see how it is, though. I am
Have you ever
excited
seen
to see it.
Casino?
No, I haven't.
Goodfellas?
Yes, I did see Goodfellas. Yes,
If you like Goodfellas, I can't see how you wouldn't like this film.
I liked it. I didn't love it.
Jesus Christ, what is
I
wrong with you?
know. I know. It's not a huge. I'm not a huge fan of mobster movies, like all the classic mobster movies. I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but
The
if you're
Godfather?
saying, oh yeah, yeah, oh Godfather, I loved. Man, that trilogy. And most people are not a fan of what 3 is it? Is 3 the
Yeah.
one that throws everybody
Yeah,
off?
I still love 3.
I like it as a sandwich. I
The
like
first two
the 3
films are
together.
10s. The first two films are 10. 3 is still like an 8.
I mean, I love the pacing of it, how it went to the prequel and then it comes back, sort of thing. Like I love that whole how he planned that out. That was really good. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love Godfather.
So yeah,
Mm.
this film is, I think I gave it a 9.
Wow. Now, why? Wait. Okay, you said how much you love it. Why not a 10?
The reason not a 10
Hmm.
is I think you could have shaved a little time off of it.
Oh, you you just seemed to have a problem with the time a second ago.
No, I don't, but that's because I just love being in that world.
Oh.
But at the same time, there are some scenes that can be a little redundant.
Hmm.
I feel that, if you watch Martin Scorsese's other mobster films, the women play such a prominent role to kind of ground the character,
Yeah.
and this film didn't really have that. Anna Paquin has a very important role, but she speaks like 10 words. And it would have been great to get a little more feeling from her character. She plays Robert De Niro's daughter, who, kind of knows how evil her father is. But it's all done through mainly expressions, but it would have been nice to get a little bit more on her. So there's a couple characters I feel that weren't fleshed out enough. That would be my biggest issue with the film, is that they had a lot of good characters that you would like to see more of. You don't get to see enough of Harvey Keitel, who I think is a brilliant actor. So that would be the biggest drawback of the film. If you're going to have 3.5 hours, you should flesh out a few more of these characters.
Oh yeah, I get you. Okay. I saw Or what did I see? What was the second one I saw? Oh yeah, I
Knives
saw.
Out. Oh, that was
No,
last week.
that was last week. I saw 21 Bridges with my boy. He's not my boy. They're not all my boys. Chadwick Boseman, formerly of Black Panther fame. Uh, the Marvel movie Black Panther, not of the Black Panthers. The the movie was really good. I liked it. For some reason it made me think of like some of those old gosh, not old. Maybe even like there's a Bruce Willis movie that came to mind, not because of the plot or anything, but just that action hero, the cop that is that just he's just in that intelligent detective. And now I'm not gonna be able to think of the name. Maybe I'll add it in later. I don't know, but anyway, Chadwick Boseman stars as a detective whose father is killed on duty, and he himself becomes a detective, and um, he's proud of what he does, though sometimes he's been caught under suspicion by the IA for the decisions he's made and whatever. So there's there's suspicions that he is a dirty cop, but he plays well to the crowd, to the audience. Like we know that he's not. Um, the story in the review I wrote in the first 10 minutes or so, this is not my fault, and I don't think all black people look alike. There's the character who is the bad guy. He's a robber. I swear I didn't see it. I must have blinked for like a short period of time, but his hair is very similar to Chadwick. He also has facial hair very similar to Chadwick, and I saw him put on the mask, and I thought it was Chadwick who was the the lead, who was playing also as a robber. So I thought it was, it's going to be one of those, the detective is also the one committing the crime, and then when he gets called to the scene he has to like cover up, you know what I mean, he has to cover up his stuff, and like it's going to be one of those movies. But then it was like, 10 minutes in, they showed the other character again. I was like, holy crap, like it's not the same guy. I was like, oops, missed that part of the movie. But that was that guy who plays his name is Michael in the movie, and the first line of the movie they talk about the Avenger, the avenging angel Michael, and I was like, oh my gosh, that has to be because he was an Avenger in the movies. I was like, oh, I noticed it. I wonder if anybody else did too. But it comes back, and so that's the robber's name is Michael, and he's a robber with a conscience, and he did not want as many deaths on his during that during the incident that happened, and on as many deaths and much blood on his hands during that incident. And so he has some guilt, and he wants to sort of surrender, but because of so many cops that end up dying, he's pretty much not wanted dead or alive, just dead. And Chadwick Boseman is on the case, and he keeps getting cut like left and right. Like just someone keeps trying to get ahead of him, trying to get this guy before he gets the truth out of him, because there is a slightly deeper mystery to what's going on, and why this guy is on the run and can't get any help from anybody. But I thought it was done really well. It was an easy to follow plot. There wasn't anything too convoluted or confusing or anything, which I enjoyed. I like that, not having to think too hard. I'm not saying that it's a story for idiots. I'm just saying that, not that I'm an idiot and I got it. It's a fun action cop drama, not drama, cop action movie. Um, One thing I didn't like was how much weight Chadwick Boseman lost. I was like, what happened? Like he didn't have the money for the food after Marvel stopped with the Black Panther movies. Like and he looked like he was wearing his dad's clothes, like that loose shirt. And I was like, oh, his face looks so gaunt. And I was like, what happened, Chadwick? And I missed that, that built up Black Panther suit and all that. Like he just looked like he had so much more. Like he dropped 50 pounds. But his character was really good. I could see him doing like a whole string of like movies with this character, like fighting corruption sort of thing. It was Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I really liked it. There was no regrets with the ticket price or anything like that. I would recommend it.
Do you remember what you rated it?
Gosh, I gave it a 7.5 or 8. Maybe not an 8, but I'm going to say 7.5. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, you're going against the critics on that one.
Yeah, critics schmitics. All right. This is the show that people come to for the real ratings.
Yeah, it seems like it's averaging 5.35.
Mm.
It didn't do too well at the box office either. You would think Black Panther would bring a little more asses in the seats with.
This is probably the second best performance, I would say, for those who are coming out of the Marvel phase when it comes to the current war, which wasn't current. I still don't know where to put that in my list of is it current, is it not current? Tom Holland, he has that movie with Will Smith coming out around in December.
Oh, that'll suck.
Yeah, I don't know, the kids movie. But he also was in the current war, and then Brendan what is his name? Brent Cumberbatch. What's the first name? Why can't I get that right?
I don't remember. Doctor
Benedict
Strange.
Cumberbatch. He was in that current war movie. I was not excited about that. So there's two off. Chris Evans though in Knives Out, that was really good. I liked his performance in that. And Chadwick, I'd put Chadwick at 2 now. I'm waiting to see Doolittle with Robert Downey Jr. See how he does with that one. He sort of looks like a little bit of a weirdo, like from his Sherlock Holmes phase.
Well, what is he going to do outside of a big monster blockbuster?
Yeah. Well, wait, what do you mean? You mean that it's definitely going to blow it out of the park?
I'm just saying he's a good actor, but he's been so used to playing Iron Man for so long.
He's going to play this inspirational character for children where he loves animals and talks to them, and he's a little bit crazy. It almost looks like a
He should
Wonka.
retire.
He should. He's got to come back.
He has more money than Jesus.
He's got to come back for the next Iron Man. He's going to be in the next phase.
Oh God, this fucking sucks.
He has to
God, no one. No fucking Iron Man. It's like the most boring superhero ever.
One of these days, we're going to do a top 10 Marvel list, and you have to be a part of it. We're going to do a
Marvel list. Can we at least make a top 10 comic book?
Oh, okay, that's fair. But you can only say Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire once. You cannot say 1 and 2 and 3.
Does the Dark Knight trilogy only count as one film?
Dark Knight is one of the movies, yes. Also, that's DC, by the way. Oh, well, we said comic book.
Sin City was a comic book.
Oh, no. See, you're going to find your way through this. I'm going to make it
The
DC
Watchmen
or Marvel. No. You're ruining everything.
Hey, can we count like manga?
They're like manga movie. You mean Japanese animation?
Yeah.
Oh. No.
Well, the manga books. There's a lot of movies based off. Old Boy was a manga.
That's true. You just want to talk about Old Boy again after that. That was
Itchy the Killer. But
no, it's not going to be those. No manga.
You're not are you against Japanese comic books? They have to be American comic books?
I love those. Okay, I'm a big anime fan.
I'm going to go and find an Indian Bollywood movie made off an Indian comic book. Just
Indian comic books. I don't think we have a big comic book industry in India. But
there's like 1.5 billion people there. They got to have some comic books.
I'm gonna make you watch 10 Bollywood movies, and then we'll do a top 10 Bollywood movie list.
Oh, I gotta find this film. It was an Indian horror film. I forget the name. I'm gonna have to look it up. I think it came out last year. It was actually really fucking good. I'm
really
gonna look
good.
Yeah, I'm gonna find the name of that movie. Yeah, I'm gonna find that for you and have you watch that. India is not known for its horror.
No.
Yeah, this was a really good one. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look that up for you.
I've never been a big fan of horror when it comes to Bollywood movies or Indian movies. It's always like ghost stuff or like possessions and like that stuff doesn't really scare me or like it. I don't know. It doesn't make for great stories in my opinion. But
It was
yeah,
just one I watched on random. It was on Prime or something like that, and I'm gonna have to figure it out. But yeah,
but it came out recently.
Yeah, I think it's only a year or two old.
Huh.
It was a story of this father finds like this ruins, and there's like a pit that has all this gold, but there's like a
Mm-hmm.
demon down there. So every time you go try to get the gold, you got to kind of run away from this demon.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but it was done really well,
You have
especially
the done really well
done
disease now,
really
by the
well.
way. Yeah. It's really you did it in your eighth grade review just now. You were like, oh no, not that one. It was what was the first one you mentioned? Maybe I'm thinking of a different thing you said in the top in our list. You were like, it was done really well, and then the two sentences later, you're like, it was really well done. I was like, you do it too.
No, that became a joke because you're talking about something that was so amazing. Oh, yeah, it was done well.
I downplayed it.
Oh, Stanley Kubrick, yeah, yeah, The Shining, yeah, that was done well.
Yeah,
Citizen Kane, yeah, that was done well.
this is a Criterion correct collection we're going through now.
Well, the other night, I decided to have a double feature.
Oh goodness.
I watched The Room and
Oh
then watched Disaster Artists following that. Have you ever seen The Room?
no, I have not.
That is on your that's not just on your list. That is top of your list.
Oh, the room from what year?
The Room from 2005
Okay.
or 2003, I'm sorry. It is known as possibly the one of the worst films ever made, but it is the funniest unintentional comedy ever made. It is so great. It is, oh my God, I love it. You just sit down. It's one of those films that it's made by Tommy Wiseau, who is just this guy that nobody knows where he got his money. They don't know where he's from. He talks with this crazy accent that you can't place. Nobody knows how old he is. He's just shrouded in mystery.
Mm.
But he was a guy who wanted to be an actor so bad he decided to make his own movie because nobody would cast him. He's the worst actor in history of acting.
Mm.
But somehow he had $6 million to make a movie. And what happens is just this train wreck, and you can't look away. It is so amazing. It is so amazing that they made a film about this film. How often has that happened?
Wow. They made
Ed
a
Wood.
movie about how he made the movie?
Yep. And not a documentary, a dramatic movie about this guy and how he made a movie.
The one with James Franco.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I remember when that one came out. I didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about.
The only there's probably other instances out there, but Ed Wood is the only one that comes to mind, which I love. That's Tim Burton, Johnny Depp. Tim Burton directed Johnny Depp about Ed Wood, who made, which is also known as one of the worst films ever, called Plan 9 from Outer Space, which became a huge cult hit.
Yeah.
And The Room is like Rocky Horror Picture Show. People go to midnight viewings, yell at the screen, throw things. It's just this cultural phenomenon. But the film is brilliant in its stupidity. I don't know how it's, a beautiful disaster it's just one of those idiosyncrasies.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, you need to see this. And so I've seen both films. I've seen The Room in the past. I've seen The Disaster Artist in the past. I've never done back-to-back viewings. So I watched The Room, which I already had a deep affection for. Um, and then I watched The Disaster Artist, which is the film about this film, directed and starring James Franco, who plays Tommy Wiseau and plays him to a T. Um, I don't know how he didn't get I think he got nominated for a Golden Globe for the acting. Um, the Disaster Artist, I think, got nominated for an Oscar for best adapted screenplay. But The Disaster Artist is based off a book written by Greg Sestero, who was Tommy Wiseau's best friend and who is the second lead in The Room.
Okay.
So I got the audio book, which I've been listening to now, and I just can't stop listening to it. It's just fascinating.
Who's reading it? Like who's on the
Greg
audiobook?
Sestero is reading it, but every time he does Tommy Wiseau, whenever it's a quote from Tommy Wiseau, he does it in Tommy Wiseau's voice. It is brilliant. After the show, I want you to just YouTube clips from The Room.
It wouldn't ruin it?
No, it's the worst film ever fucking made. You're not going into this movie. There's no discernible, like, the plot's all over the place. There's subplots that just never materialize to anything. Basically, it's a film of a woman who, Tommy Wiseau is about to be married to. The funny part throughout the whole film, he calls it his future wife because Tommy Wiseau's grip of the English language was so bad that he didn't know what a fiance was. And she is sleeping with his best friend.
Ew.
So it's a romantic drama that is neither romantic or dramatic. But every single Tommy Wiseau for me is such a captivating person because he's so delusional that he cannot see how bad he is, but at the same time, he somehow also had $6 million to make a movie. So that's just like a perfect storm that we have never seen before in movies. And the Disaster Artist was a great film about Tommy Wiseau and based off the book written by Greg Sestero. And they did an amazing job. But yeah, you need to see both of those films. After
Is he alive?
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau's still alive. I like Tommy Wiseau so much that I just go to YouTube and watch interviews with him. Because it's like he's a person he's an alien. He's not of this planet. And I'm telling you, it's going to be like a rabbit hole. Once you watch The Room, like it's going to be like, I want to know more about this guy.
Whoa.
But yeah, check out The Room and then check out The Disaster Artist. It was It was the best double feature I've had in a long time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I remember hearing how well it did, The Disaster Artist, but I didn't. I never checked it out.
Once you see Tommy Wiseau act, like, it's burnt into your brain forever. Like there's these uncomfortably long sex scenes, but the way he's having sex on top of her is there's no way like where his penis is in her belly button or something, like it's not even natural. They have a friend who's a kid who likes to watch them, but the character's never explained. who also is accosted by a drug dealer because he owes a drug dealer money, which I don't know how you owe a drug dealer money because usually you need the money up front. But that subplot's never gone back to.
Well, I'm glad it got a 26% on Rotten and a 3.7 because you're saying it's a bad movie. So I was like, I thought maybe because you said it's such a cult classic that, oh, people are just like, oh, it's a must see. So it's like gets high reviews kind of thing like that.
It has 26% because of the people who love the film.
Oh, here it says 78% like this film among Google users.
Yeah,
so that's
yeah, because it's people who see this film love this film.
Yeah,
and it's it's such a. You're not used to doing like you have the Troll 2, which I don't know. Have you ever heard of Troll 2?
You mean Troll, like a sequel to the Troll?
Yeah, don't even think of it in that light. There's a film called Troll 2, which is another midnight movie, which gets ironically watched because of how bad it is, and that's a great one too. It's not as good as this one, but they made a whole documentary about how bad that film was.
I think we did talk about that one time, and I confused it with Leprechaun, and then we went into talking about Jennifer Aniston in her debut as in the Leprechaun.
Went off on one of our wild tangents.
Yeah.
But yeah, sit down with your wife and just watch this movie.
After you told me about this long, strange sex scene.
It's hilarious. It's a hilarious sex scene. And it just goes on for like 3-4 minutes, and you're watching it like, what the fuck is going on? And there's another one where they're on the steps. I don't know. You try to have sex on steps, it just doesn't work very well.
Well, but yeah, I want to see it now.
Yeah, you will be. If you don't, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh so hard at how bad it is. Oh, I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm thinking, I want to go watch it again.
Oh man, that's good. Well, I'm gonna find that movie and watch it. The Room. I was confusing it with the other movie, Room.
Room, which is an amazing film. Which I was watching an interview with Seth Rogen, who's also into Disaster Artist. He actually makes a joke. Not Room, which was a great film. The Room. Don't get those confused. It's totally different spectrums.
Right.
But and then let me see. I have anything else? I watched a lot of movies. Folks know I watch a lot of movies.
I was going to say maybe
I'll bring up one more.
Okay.
I think you've seen this one. Since we talk about this guy quite often.
Who?
I watched Rambo: Last Blood.
Oh, Rambo. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen that one yet?
I did. I saw this one when it came out, yeah.
Okay. So Rambo: Last Blood. The first 2 acts don't even matter.
I mean, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a little bit more of a story, then yeah.
Is there really though?
I mean,
they could do voiceover for like 2 minutes and explain that whole story.
So I talked about this with somebody. I don't remember. Maybe I wrote about it somewhere. But I liked, if you're looking for emotion out of Stallone's face, don't go to this movie. Nothing changes on that man's face. I'm not sure if it's surgery or what happened to him.
Dude, that's Botox and surgery.
Yeah, like something went wrong on that man's face. But he cannot, push an expression to save his life. There's also scenes where he gets spoken to in Spanish and he replies in English. And I was like, oh, for a second I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like he's gonna speak Spanish. He doesn't speak a lick of it. And I'm like, God dang it, you missed an opportunity to like show a little bit more depth to your character. Like, oh, Rambo lives in this area and he learned Spanish to kind of mix in, and he was, whatever. No, he doesn't. He just speaks in English. I'm like, oh, come on, Stallone.
Yeah, he never learned Vietnamese either.
Yeah. That was more or less a temporary situation. At least we know he was in this area for 10 or 15 years or something. But yeah, go ahead. You wanna tell the story, and I'll chime in when you're a bit too rough on my boy.
No, no, I think I wrote on in the review that I think Stallone died a few years ago, and
What?
they're just weakening and burying his ass through all these movies.
Yeah, it might be the case.
But so Rambo's, I guess they never make it really clear. I guess he calls it his niece. Like, I don't know how.
Some relation, yeah.
I
So,
think it's more of him choosing this family, but
oh,
yeah, she tries to go to Mexico to find her real father,
mhm,
and gets kidnapped by human sex traffickers,
yeah.
and that's pretty much all you need to know. And
What's the next scene
that's
you're
two
about to
acts.
skip to?
The first two acts, that's all you need. Those, what did I say, about 2 sentences? That's all you need to know for the first two acts. Other than, I think you could kick Stallone in the nuts and he'd have the same expression. But the last act is like, Home Alone on crack.
Oh yeah. I mean, you see the setup long before. In the very beginning, he's sitting in his tunnels, and I don't know who makes tunnels, but he has tunnels under his property, and he's got a workstation and like the blacksmith's location thing underneath, and something's gonna happen down there, and you
Yeah,
come out, and then yeah, it happens.
yeah. It gets really gory. I like a lot of the action there. Um, But yeah, the first hour doesn't matter. If you could just showed me that last 30 minutes, it would have been a great short film.
So I think the first hour was to give it more of a plot. Because if you just go in, I don't think you can do that with movies nowadays and be, even make an attempt for a wide acceptance. Because people want to see the reasoning. It's not just about send a guy out, he's in war, gotta kill people. He's got to have enough of a motivation to do it. So they had this they had this story where he goes down to Mexico to look for her, and he is who he is. I mean, they don't play up that he's 20 years old. Like he's obviously the same Rambo from the previous movies, so he's old, and he walks kind of like an old man, even though he may be capable of defending himself. He needs the whole Home Alone tactic to survive. Like he needs a weapon. He's not, big hand-to-hand fighter like he's not pulling out any Muay Thai moves or anything. He's not Tony Shying around here. He's just like a big guy. And if he doesn't have his knife, which they take away from him at one point, I'm like, fuck, what are you gonna do, Stallone? and they beat the crap out of this guy. And
No,
it's
that scene was so ridiculous.
why? What do you mean?
When he just says, "I'm going to go right into the belly of the beast,
Yeah.
not say a word, and just have them all kick the shit out of me."
I was just like,
What was
why?
the purpose of that?
Yeah. It was just to like show that he doesn't want to fight anymore. I'm like, come on. All these guys are armed to like the teeth with guns and knives. Like,
But he wasn't
why
even
did
nice. He'd say, "Hey, you guys took my niece. Can you give her back, please?" He just didn't say anything. You know
so
her. And then he gets his
yeah.
ass kicked.
And then it's like he should have died, but obviously there's the person who finds him, and then
Yeah, he looked like the end of Rocky.
yeah. Don't give away Rocky.
Oh,
So
oh yeah. Spoil
anyway,
Rocky.
the
He
greatest
loses in the
fight.
first one.
Oh, gross. can't believe that movie still to this day did that to me. Everyone's like, Rocky, great movie. No, fuck Rocky.
But the last half hour I enjoyed. I understand what you're saying. You got to have a story to it.
Yeah.
But the story was done so poorly that you could have did just a rolling credits from Star Wars to tell it, and then go into the last half hour, and it would have been just as effective.
I mean, if it was only about the ending, if it was only about that part, I would have felt it was utter crap. It felt at least more complete of a story because there was all that, the reasoning and all that. And honestly, I get very irked by human trafficking stories, and there was enough realism in the sense of like how they handle the women and what they do and stuff that it was unsettling. And that girl, I mean, the most courageous girl I've ever seen. I mean, my God, she was just 16, 15 or something, and she's going down there, and stuff that happens. And maybe, yeah, obviously you didn't connect that much to it, but I connected to it, being a father of a child. I have a daughter, and so I really put myself in that situation. And I was like, oh God, even though Stallone did walk up like an idiot over there and just get himself, get his ass handed to him for no reason. He had no plan. I didn't understand that at all. He's this big military guy. He's his first his first act when he has this chance to do shit. He doesn't do shit. He just walks up into a girl. I'm like, what are you doing? How is this Rambo at all? Like, didn't you learn anything? And if you get killed, what hope does she have that you get beat up and busted up and you're sitting in a gutter? What are you gonna do now?
Yeah,
Like,
they should have killed him, which they in real life would have killed him.
Yes.
And then she would have just been in the same position.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was very stupid. Like, that part of the story, the fact that, because he wasn't getting vengeance for what they did to him, it's for her. So it didn't matter that he got beat up, really. Like, that didn't push the story. It just gave us something to look at, like scars that were healing on his face, and that one guy marked him on his face or some shit. I was like, whatever. You guys are so stupid. You should have killed him. But then anyway, he does. I don't know. Do we want to? This is not that great of a movie that I want to recommend it anyway. If you like the Rambo series, I guess go see it. But it was a hard scene to watch when he got her back, and that happened. So that was sad.
But do you think this is trying to push some xenophobic attitudes towards Mexico?
I don't know.
Did it really have to be Mexicans, especially in the political climate that we're living in?
That's true. Why, have you heard Stallone is a Republican or something? Did he write this one too? Did he write this?
I'm not sure, but I think Stallone is a Republican.
Then I believe it. Then this must have been xenophobic. I mean, it was about some cartel. It was about human trafficking. It was about,
because in reality,
area.
It's more of like the Eastern Europeans who are really, really deep into that. Right? I mean, just to be honest, there's probably some going on in Mexico.
I'm sorry for any Eastern Europeans who are part of this group. David does not speak for both of us.
But it's the Italians are better at organizing crime. That's
it's one of their strong suits. Go on.
But if you're going to do something, if I was going to do a film about sex trafficking, it comes a lot more from Russia and Ukraine and stuff like that. You would think that's the way that they would go. There's really no reason to make it Mexico.
I mean, I think the only reason was that because Rambo is back home, and they were like, well, this is the story we want to tell. What's the closest we can do? It's like, oh, well, he's driving back and forth. He lives in friggin' New Mexico or Arizona, wherever the hell he was driving out of, to drive down to Mexico. It had to be a reachable place.
Well, it could have been, he could have been close to New York, and she got caught up with the wrong people. That
Yeah, it could have been. Maybe the budget would have been bigger.
Even a cartel would have been at least a little more like she got caught up in drugs. But to make it sex trafficking seems to make it even uglier.
Yeah, no, it could be. There could be some kind of political agenda behind it to talk about that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that's one thing. It just doesn't seem realistic, and I don't know if they're trying to push some kind of political agenda or not. But
Did he?
he killed a bunch of Mexicans at the end, so.
I assume they're all Mexican. They could have been from Honduras. They could have been from El Salvador. They could have been from Nicaragua. Yeah, we're not sure.
Well, I'm not. I'm just saying that they lived in Mexico. I'm not saying what their origins are, but if you live in Mexico, it's safe to call you Mexican, right? Even if you're white.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here, a lot of white people wouldn't say you're Mexican. I mean, American. If you're in America, everyone is still fighting to be called an American.
Yeah, if you're of Mexican descent, but you grew up your whole life in America, you're American.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're from Honduras and you live in Mexico, you're Mexican then.
Yeah, that's how David feels about those people. I think we should move on before we lose listeners. I was going to say the last scene in the movie, the last kill scene, freaking brutal. It was just awesome. I loved that. I was like, oh, gross. I really wanted that to happen. I think I'm pretty sure he telegraphs that earlier. Doesn't he say exactly that?
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to rip your heart out. And oh gosh, that scene is like, yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guts and body parts flying around, and
it was very sudden because like the whole first half of the movie, which you said an hour, it must have been a 2-hour movie. First half of the movie, it's a pretty tame fight the cartel, save the girl sort of thing. And then second half is just this like blood and guts, like whoa. Like where did this, I didn't even think it was gonna go that far.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
It was like horror movie level.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it got shotgun really to the knees, and like people are like, oh man. Yeah, Home Alone.
There was one scene where he clean blows off a guy's head with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And then shoots him again.
He was still breathing.
And I was watching with my wife, and she's like, why did he shoot him again? He just, he blew his whole head off. And I'm also thinking, like, in one of those situations, don't you try to conserve a little bit of ammo?
Also, I was going to say, he had to have really good hearing, right? To know which way down the tunnel they were coming and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't the shotgun completely blowing out his eardrums every time he used it? The close confines of those tunnels, and he's just blowing people's brains out right next door. Like, get out of here.
Grenades going off.
Grenades.
Pits with spikes.
The working title for this movie was Home Alone Stallone.
Home Alone Stallone.
That's what I'm calling it.
Oh. But that's the end of my list. I had a lot more, but I think
there's always a lot more. There's never enough time in our life to finish 12 movies a week.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up, my friend.
Let us wrap it up. All right. So we'd like to thank Steve Radzinski for being on the show. And for that interview on his movie. Check out Carousel. That was a lot more fun to watch than I was expecting to be. I think it was fun because he wasn't afraid to make jokes about the movie. Like he was just kind of having fun with it, and it was surprising. A couple of the scenes just made me just laugh out loud, and I know my wife was outside the room and she's like, "What's so funny?" Like it's like, "Oh man, this movie, just ridiculous, so funny." All right, folks, that's our show for the week. You've been listening to Coast to Coast Film Reviews. If you like this one, we'll have a better one for you next week. I'm Raj. Have a good night.
And this is David. Have a good time of day.